Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast brought to you by our friends over at Circa and over at Fantrax. If you've yet to sign up over at RotoWire, check us out. It's draft season. Draft season is officially heated up, about as hot as it can get here as we get into late July. Use that code YouTube15 to get 15% off any subscription. For this episode, I'm your host, John McKechnie. That is Mario Puig. Same playbook we've been using the last few weeks here. Training camps are starting to open up. I think I saw Adam Schefter's tweet as of Tuesday morning saying that as of Tuesday, 26 out of the 32 teams will have reported to camp as of today. It's on. It's on. So we're gonna
32.
It's 32 is
pretty much all of it.
Is nigh. So we are going to take a look at a couple of job battles and a one in light of a recent kind of surprise release in the case of Noah Fant being let go by the Seattle Seahawks. But we're going to get things rolling with the Bills, and then later on we're going to do a deep dive into the Indianapolis Colts offense for this upcoming season. But starting things off in Buffalo, Mario, looking at the backfield, James Cook looks like he is reporting to Bills camp. I know that there had been a little bit of consternation among Bills Mafia this offseason as to whether a holdout or a hold in what was possible in Cook's case, coming off of the huge year last year. But it looks like he's at least at the facilities right now.
Right. So worst case scenario avoided. Now we wait to see how bought in Cook might be and how much the Bills might be willing to barter with him. Like, are they going to maybe meet each other halfway, or is this going to be a ongoing standoff with like a Cold War kind of thing where we're like, well, it's Cook's not exactly holding out, but he sure seems like he might be kind of mad at the team or whatever. And especially if he starts doing stuff like missing practices with a hammy or whatever, then we can probably go like, I guess he's holding in a little bit. But James Cook, he is in a difficult spot, I think, because he was obviously very productive last year. He's very effective in the role that the Bills had him in, which was, even though he's a running back, I'd almost compare James Cook to his function anyway, as to like a closer in baseball, where Josh Allen would pretty much, get them into scoring range. And James Cook never had to really take on the full exposure, take on the full attention of the defense. So he kind of, in a way, had these things teed up all the time, and it was easier than the tasks that a lot of running backs have. But he also very reliably clinched in those moments, exactly like the Bills needed him to. So while I understand why the Bills don't want to pay Cook, I can also understand why Cook feels like he's worth quite a bit. And also, even as much as I think a guy like Ray Davis is clearly a capable starter, including one who can do some things that Cook can't, it's objectively messing with a formula that worked very well to, bring an uncertainty to a spot where the guy prior had 18 touchdowns on like 200 carries or whatever.
Right. So, I mean, Cook was ridiculously, efficient with his opportunities last year in that sense, averaging almost 5 yards a carry, like you said, punching in the 16 rushing touchdowns and grabbing another 2 through the air on, pretty efficient 32 out of 38 catches relative to targets in the passing game. Although I think Buffalo has, someone in Ty Johnson who's maybe conventionally a little bit better in the passing game. But regardless, you have a guy in Cook that I think showed the apex of what he can do. I think what fantasy managers are kind of wrestling with for this year is more so, who is James Cook, in the sense that his first 2 years, 4 combined rushing touchdowns. Last year, 16. Where does the truth lie? Because the offense doesn't project to really get worse this year. As far as like the Vegas implied totals, I think the Bills are either at the top or the second highest projected scoring team in the NFL. And of course, Josh Allen's going to punch in some rushing touchdowns in his own right. But feels like, Cook, I thought that Ray Davis was going to kind of get a lot of that short yardage stuff last year, but it was Cook, and Cook was really effective at it. So why mess with it if you're Buffalo?
Yeah, I think what pretty much happened there, especially from those first 2 years relative to the last, the difference was simply Joe Brady, and Joe Brady having full control, the full offseason in last year's case to implement his specific vision, whereas the first year he picked up mid-season for Ken Dorsey, and there's only so much Joe Brady can make on that kind of short in-season notice. There's only so much he can make the offense the exact way he might prefer to. Last year we saw in my opinion, we saw further proof that Joe Brady's just one of the best offensive minds in the game. Sorry, give me a Dulce break here.
Yes, I got you. But yeah, I mean, obviously that was borne out in the numbers last year in the production across the board. It was a much smoother offense, and I think what was almost more impressive was that on paper, Buffalo didn't really get better last year offensively. You know, as far as like who was available, and yet the ultimate results were superior. Mario, I don't know if you heard what I was.
I heard
saying.
that. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
But yeah, you're totally right. And I think what Brady's specific insight was that the Bills needed to run the ball more. Like Josh Allen as a passer is great, but the Bills were leaning on it too much. They were chasing EPA instead of actual yards and points. So Joe Brady cares more about yards and points than EPA. And that's why he went to the ground game, because it was out of the pragmatic, it was a pragmatic response to the observation that defenses are really trying to stop our passing game right now. We can run the ball pretty well. Maybe we should just do it more at the very least, until defenses show us a more favorable look for the passing game. So on the one hand, I don't think Brady's ideologically committed to running the offense last year. I think he did it because it was what he thought was the easiest way to score points based on what the defenses were giving them. But if defenses start, a lot of these Cook touchdowns specifically, they're designed with the specific observation that defenses were gunning for Allen on the power run concepts in scoring range. So a lot of those are just kind of pitches to the outside where Cook just has to run to the corner, to the pylon, and the defense has already committed all of their like gap containment toward the interior. So Cook just kind of has maybe one guy he has to beat, and that's not that much to ask of a running back, especially Cook's pretty good, so it's easy to get those touchdowns. If those touchdowns are that easily available again this year, I think Brady will call the exact same thing. But I think to some extent defenses are forced to look for those tosses and pitches to Cook more than they did last year, which is why I expect Brady to respond with more interior runs for Allen in scoring range. And I like the I don't know if anyone's offering this as a bet, but I like the chances of Allen having 20 rushing touchdowns this year, specifically because I largely don't think Cook is going to have 16 again. Cook could have 7 or 8 or 9 and still pay off at 4th round ADP. But it's going to be Allen who takes those touchdowns rather than Ray Davis, in my opinion. Even though I like Davis, Davis is more like, we worry about that if Cook misses time with an injury, because then Davis can really flex and start to show what he can do, and that would be worrisome for Cook. But unless something like that happens, I think, like you were saying, the Bills don't really want to mess with this if they don't have to.
Right. So ultimately, as it stands, Cook checking in with an ADP of 43.6 over on Underdog. To your point on Josh Allen, I'm sure that there are books offering touchdown, like leading touchdown for rushing
touchdown leader. He could do that.
Yeah. So that's definitely out there. And I mean, he must have been close last year too. I mean,
he had 15, I think, last year, or 14. So yeah, okay, I think 20 is very
Henry.
But yeah, I mean, Khalil Shakir, I think he's the real deal. His production can scale up. I think Keon Coleman's going to be more effective this year than last year. I see no reason to think the Bills score fewer touchdowns. I just think, as far as Cook goes specifically, he might / probably will lose some to Allen. But in the 4th round, again, I just don't know if that really matters that much. I thought Cook was going to be going in like the 2nd round after the year he had last year, and I wouldn't be paying that price. 4th round, though, I mean, even though I think Cook is a little bit just a role player, I don't know if I think that's a good price, actually. I mean, I might be missing something, but 4th round, it seems like all the risk is kind of acknowledged already.
Right. He's not being drafted as if he's going to the expectation is 16 touchdowns again, like
Right.
at all. I guess now like the new toss up would be, him versus like, do you want to take Omarion Hampton in that range
I
and
do want
instead?
Hampton more,
Yeah,
but it's not a slam dunk. And for injury exposure reasons, you don't want to go Hampton every time in that case.
no. So mixing in some Cook, I mean, ultimately you're just getting the top running back for one of the most high scoring offenses
Yeah.
in the NFL. That's usually like not a bad piece to be adding to your roster builds. Beyond that, just looking at the rest of this backfield. With Cook, let's just assume that everything gets ironed out contract wise and everything like that. He's ready to go week one. Ray Davis getting drafted at pick 135. Do you think that that's sort of under the assumption, regardless that Cook is going to be here? I mean, it doesn't seem like he's being drafted as though like there's an opportunity that he like steals a couple starts to begin the year or anything like that. But do you like him at this current ADP?
I do. I like Ray Davis in general, and I find him. I personally regard him as probably one of the highest upside handcuff guys. I think if you gave Davis the snaps that go to Cook, there's a chance that Davis does more fantasy production because I think you might see the Bills call a little bit more run plays per snap in general with Davis. Like as good as Cook has been, you still can't really do power concepts with him. If he's running between the tackles, well, it's usually because the offensive line just kind of blew open a huge gap for him to run through. With Davis, that's a guy you can throw into the teeth of the defense and have him grind them down a little bit because at 5'8", 220 or whatever, he's so low to the ground and you can't really get underneath his pads ever. So I like Davis, and I think Davis adds like a real element to the offense that they don't have with Cook on the field. But the bigger issue is just, again, the Bills have no real reason to preemptively change the offense when it worked already. Like to preemptively change the offense in response to the idea that defenses might play us differently this year. I don't think Brady's going to do that in week one. Like if he observes defenses selling out to stop what they were doing last year, I think he'll switch it up for pragmatic reasons, but he's going to make defenses prove they can stop them first.
Well, week one, they're going to get crushed, but I mean, other than that, I'm sure they're going to be pretty good this year. Let's see. I've got like 16% Ray Davis. So consider me a believer. I think he kind of represents what Buffalo was chasing, prior to last year for a couple seasons, like the power component to that backfield. Kind of like saw it with was Latavius Murray there, Leonard Fournette, Damian Harris, Damian Harris in the broadcast game. Now I saw him on.
Yeah, he was
CBS,
an injury scratch at least, but yeah, the Bills were
good for him.
The Latavius Murray thing especially. That was like, oh my god, why are you doing this? Get a real running back, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of like good teams ended up in bad spots and had dalliances with late stage Latavius Murray.
He was pretty good earlier, yeah.
Yeah. Our guy Jamie wants to keep it on the Bills for a second here. What's going on, Jamie? Always good to chat with you. Thoughts on Josh Palmer and or Elijah Moore? How do they project in this offense? So obviously you kind of alluded to the idea of Keon Coleman taking a step further as like the boundary X guy that this year. Matt Collins is gone. Elijah Moore, or I'm sorry, Khalil Shakir's role, maybe he gets fewer targets and maybe, probably he's going to be less efficient. I mean, last year is like almost impossible to completely replicate, but there's another spot here. And I don't think that the tight ends are doing enough to where it's like, oh, they like have to have this big role in the offense. So, I mean, are there going to be targets available for Palmer and or Elijah Moore? Does Palmer just kind of get what Matt Collins got last year? That's kind of how I'm viewing it, but I'm interested to hear what you think.
I'm not really sure what the point of Matt Collins ever is. So in that sense, I don't know what the Bills might be trying to replace functions that might have gone to Hollins. I don't know if they're going to keep those or if they're just going to put them on Coleman. I would kind of hope and assume they're just going to put it on Coleman. So what I mean by that is I expect Coleman to take a step forward in the target rotation. But I also could also imagine him basically taking those Hollins snaps in the sense that they might rely on Coleman to be like a bruising blocker in some situations that they wouldn't ask of guys like Palmer and certainly not Shakir or Elijah Moore. But the way I ultimately see it shaking out is the top three will be Coleman. I'll say Shakir is the one who's the best in fantasy, and I am a big Shakir fan. But I think Coleman will be the clear X, like you said, and Palmer will more or less be the flanker. But in practice, what that might mean is swinging between the boundary and the slot, depending on the situation, the play call, whatever's going on with Shakir or Coleman health wise. And I see Elijah Moore as the backup pure slot guy. So in other words, I think Moore is the fourth wide receiver there, but he would mostly get reps when either they're in four wide trips or when Shakir is lined up at the flanker spot instead of Palmer and Palmer is on the bench. I personally wouldn't try to get that look if I was the Bills. I prefer to have Palmer on the field than Moore, but it's going to be tough week to week guessing any of these guys because Joe Brady showed that he will take what defenses are giving and he won't be forcing the ball to anyone in particular.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough rotation to figure out. I think beyond the top two, I think it's going to be pretty concentrated between those top two guys, and scrounging for value, I think, is going to be a little bit tricky. I guess this is a bit spitballing here, but I feel like we didn't talk about Ty Johnson. We don't have to spend a lot of time on him, but Josh Allen has said, he thinks he's the best pass catching running back in the league. We saw instances that don't dispute that last year. I want to say it was against the Broncos. He had like a pretty nasty looking receiving touchdown.
Sorry, doesn't he just do wheel routes? Like I know he's
awesome at it, and
yeah,
Josh
I know
Allen's
it works really well. It's just one of those things like they would tend to go to it when the defense was pantsed by it. I am kind of skeptical that Ty Johnson's the kind of running back who could catch 70 passes, for instance. But if you only have 25 targets to give him over the course of the year and you tee him up for these kill shots, like, yeah, that was something. And Allen showed that he would sort of go through his progression, like whatever, the 1-2, they're covered. But I noticed this slow linebacker is over on Johnson over here, so I'm just going to wait that out. And, they get these easy big plays with that look.
Well, I guess landing the plane of my flimsy point here, if you're playing in like 20th round DraftKings, so full point PPR, him versus some like the other like kind of 6th, 7th round rookie running backs that are, kind of popular dart throws there's at least probably, I could say 2 weeks where Ty Johnson might be able to crack your lineup and help you out. So
well, John,
take that for what you will.
The angle I would pitch is that Johnson can do more as a runner than he has too. He just hasn't had opportunities as a runner. Like he was a rushing specialist coming out of Maryland, and if God forbid Cook were to miss any time, as much as I think Davis would be the starter, Johnson could be like a 6 to 8 carry guy too. And he, certainly at Maryland, he was explosive on a per carry basis.
He was a great terp.
But Jamie, the point about Palmer, I do think Shakir is a good one to buy best ball or redraft, but after and Coleman too. But after those two, I would view Palmer as ideally more best ball because you don't. I don't know. He's a good player, and I think he's going to do something this year. I just don't think it's going to be that much and not that predictable when he does. And in the case of Moore, you need Shakir to get hurt. But I guess if Shakir misses time, then Moore would be a fab target.
Right. Yeah, but it's hard to at least get multiple shares of Elijah Moore in best ball. Basically, I think you'd have to be
do worse at doing it, especially 20 plus rounds.
I would basically consider it, and same with Palmer. If I already have Josh Allen and maybe I missed out on one of Shakir or Coleman to stack them up with, and just here's a dart. Maybe this will pan out. Let's move over to Seattle. So a little bit of news that I think kind of seemed to excite some people on Sunday night, especially those who have been interested in rookie Elijah Arroyo. No Fant being shown the door by the Seattle Seahawks makes him a free agent right before camp. So I don't know if a lot of people were necessarily drafting Fant. I think his ADP was very much like the last pick of the draft type of thing, at least over on Underdog. That is what it is. But in Arroyo's case, he is trending up as a result of this. I think that it's fair to say that what he does at the tight end spot is more pass catcher and therefore fantasy friendly. So we're starting to see him creep up a little bit. Are you going to be like buying at the new price, and how high do you see it potentially going for Arroyo, who's flirting with cracking the top 200 now?
Yeah, Arroyo's clearly a good prospect, and the Seahawks value him greatly. I think you could determine that just from where they drafted him, but certainly releasing Fant adds more reason to believe it. What I can't figure out is what a fair rookie year expectation would be for Arroyo. I can't tell. Also, I can't tell if there's much to be done there at tight end in general. Like, Fant is a good player in my opinion. They basically weren't using him last year as much more than a blocker. So, and they specifically talk about Arroyo as, we love how he's inline capable, and that's good for real life purposes, and it's good for his ability to stay on the field. But if they value him for how he's just big enough to make the defense respond with jumbo personnel, that's not the same as saying we want to get him the ball.
No.
It could very easily mean instead, we love the way we can move this guy around to free up Jackson Smith and Jigba or Cooper Kupp instead. So whatever way this, I should say, I guess too at the outset, I don't trust the Seahawks at all. I don't think they have any idea what they're doing. They've been dysfunctional for a long time. When you really look at it, adding Sam Darnold to the equation is going to make things chaotic at best, in my opinion. You throw in a sketchy OL, that some of those defenses in that, well, the 49ers are taking a step back, but like the Cardinals and Rams, they're looking kind of nasty in the front seven. So, or like the Rams case at least. So I don't trust the Seahawks. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. But if they're going to give Arroyo real routes that he can draw real targets with, there's reason to think he would capitalize. There's reason to think Arroyo at 6'4", 250 or whatever he is, runs in the low 4.5s. I don't know why he didn't run a 40 before the draft, but there's reason to think he's like a low 4.5 or mid 4.5 guy. So the target rate was not that high at Miami last year, but he did pretty much, he would always dunk it when he did get targets.
Right. Yeah, I think he caught like 35 out of 45 targets, and it helps when Cam Ward's your quarterback, but you don't just fall back asswards into 35 catches on 45 targets either. Jamie notes that a bit of an injury history there when it comes to Arroyo. I mean, last year was really the only year in which he produced, which is good point.
Yeah, it was knee stuff repeatedly too, if I remember right. So
yes,
I don't know. It's the tools, the skills are probably there. I don't know if the opportunity actually is. And I also got to say, in general, like the hype response when people are like, yes, Arroyo season on the internet, like that kind of stuff just annoys me, because like, why are we just assuming this rookie second round pick is going to be better than a guy like Fant, who was a first round pick and had a lot of the same strengths, presently has a lot of the exact same strengths that Arroyo does. It didn't amount to anything last year. The quarterback's going to get worse. I don't think that one guy getting cut or hurt or whatever is always just like the rookie prospect who we have in dynasty or late best ball rounds. Hooray, they're going to take off now. It's like that. People got to stop having that like if then response to things like that. It's going to be a struggle in an offense like this, and Arroyo will probably be a better player 2 years from now than this year.
Yeah. So I think I would, if I have to do it at the end of a draft. As far as tight ends go, I think I prefer Juwan Johnson, even though he's attached to
Darren Waller.
Yeah, I think Waller goes a decent bit ahead at this point. I think that
really?
There's like enough of a Waller hive to where there's at least one Waller guy in every draft. So he goes like pick 190.
Oh, dang.
And then Jatavian Sanders, who I like as a player, but I just am so
I think
not
Arroyo over him for sure.
Yeah. So last night on DraftKings, out of morbid curiosity, I wanted to grab an Arroyo share, and therefore I did. And my quarterback strategy got blown up in my face pretty like repeatedly towards the end. Guess who took a 20th round flyer on Jalen Milroe? This guy.
Oh, that could pay off. I mean, that team is going to suck. I am positive. And Darnold is going to. first time he's doing that wacky, like, Chris Berman narration style offense. That's like, how are they not going to take a look at Milroe? Even if they think he's garbage and not ready, they're going to be like, yeah, well, Darnold sucks too. And he's like 30. So
And if the offensive line is as bad as people say it is,
it could be.
that's a really like bad formula for someone like Darnold, and something that like could almost force them to, like, if they want to have like any hope in a game, is just like you got to just have Milroe running the ball. And
Yeah.
so
Oh, and
I'll
real quick,
dabble in
AJ
that. I'm not
Barner's
going
just a
heavy on it.
blocker. If
Okay.
anyone was trying to spin a hype thing for him, don't.
There will always be that one year that AJ Barner had, or that one maybe like month of games at Indiana where he was like kind of useful in college football DFS. But that was a while ago now. He like went to Michigan and won a national championship, so good for him. But yeah, I'm not really looking his way for fantasy this year. Let's get a couple of ad reads before we dig into the Indianapolis Colts for this week's deep dive. First, our message from Circa. Circa Million and Circa Survivor are back with a massive $21 million in guaranteed prizes. Circa Million, pick 5 games against the spread each week, 18 weeks of action with 126 ways to win. $1 million for the winner and $6 million guaranteed. Circa Survivor, 1 pick a week, no point spread, lasts the longest to win it all. At least $15 million guaranteed in that one. Enter in Nevada, play from anywhere. 21 million guaranteed. Visit circusports.com for details. We also get a message from our friends over at Fantrax. Is there something you wish your fantasy league had, or features that are missing from your current leagues? Bonus scoring, custom schedules or playoffs, deeper team settings? Well, look no further, because we have you covered with our friends over at Fantrax. Fantrax is the most customizable platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Fantrax even offers college football fantasy leagues. And to speak on how customizable it is over at Fantrax, I'm currently in a 60-round college football best ball draft, about a week and a half into that bad boy. And this past Saturday, participated in a 52 league or 52 team draft. So it was like crazy. It's 12 rounds, but 52 teams. That was that put my brain right in a blender, and you can only kind of come up with that sort of fantasy madness, I feel like, over at Fantrax. So go ahead and create or join a fantasy football commissioner league. Invite your friends and dominate your draft this season. Fantrax is the top dynasty fantasy football platform in the industry. Fantrax is running a special promotion you don't want to miss. Sign up for free at fantrax.com/rotowire today to enter for your chance to win a signed Jamar Chase jersey. Simply create a new league or bring over your existing leagues for more chances to win. Simply go to fantrax.com/rotowire and sign up today. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. Again, that's fantrax.com/rotowire. All right, Mario. This one is tough. I don't know how to analyze this one properly. I mean, last year's such an odd sample. Of course, we're talking about the Indianapolis Colts. They've got a third-year former first-round pick in Anthony Richardson, who was always going to be a project. They seem surprised that he is a project, and therefore, like they bring in Joe Flacco last year. They bring in Daniel Jones this year. The offense looks so different week to week, depending on who what was starting for them last year. I mean, like the target counts and everything, just kind of wild. Like you can kind of see exactly which weeks Joe Flacco was starting versus which weeks Richardson was starting. It's reflected in those target counts for Josh Downs and for Michael Pittman. Those two combined for let's see, Downs 7.6 targets per game when he was healthy, 6.9 targets per game in Pittman's case. Both those guys scratch over 100 targets on the season. So again, we got the quarterback situation ongoing, and they bring in Tyler Warren in the first round of the draft after getting kind of next to nothing from its tight end personnel last year. About 50 or so targets from the top two tight ends in that room. Imagine that Tyler Warren can kind of absorb those. But kind of we'll start from the top here. What's the direction of this offense right now?
a bad one, a downward type direction, spiraling, as in a flush toilet kind of direction. This team sucks. They're going to be terrible. Their GM and coach will both be fired in the offseason. Maybe in the season. They both could get fired. Both Ballard and Steichen will get fired either after the season or in the season. And they will go to war against each other in the media as things get worse. If Daniel Jones is starting in week 1, be it because he was named the starter or because of Richardson's shoulder being screwed up, and if Daniel Jones has a bad game that week, you're gonna see Ballard and Steichen trying to box each other out in the media and try to throw the other. No, I was gonna say throw to the wolves. Different nature death analogy. Ballard's going to try to trip Steichen to outrun Steichen so the bear gets him.
Yes,
and also vice versa. So it's a bad situation with conflicting political interests among decision makers and shot callers who don't have as much interest in winning this year as they do just outlasting the other guy. And it's going to show up. Like, you can't make a coherent team with this kind of skullduggery occurring in the background. And I think, both the quarterbacks are probably bad. I think as much as you could make Richardson better than Jones by running a certain type of offense, Shane Steichen does not want to run that kind of offense. He wants to run, an offense for Justin Herbert. Problem is, he doesn't have Justin Herbert either. He has Daniel Jones as the alternative. And to pitch Daniel Jones as something like a stabilizing, consistency factor, and as a contrast to the chaos of Richardson, it's absurd. It's like, it shows right at the outset that this person has no idea what they're getting into. It's not going to go well, and when it goes poorly, they're not going to know what to do. They're going to flail at best. Like, I think there's a chance Riley Leonard starts games this year. So it's going to be a nightmare. The question is, what kind of fantasy production, if any, can be harvested from such a barren land as this? And Jonathan Taylor is, I guess, the first person that comes to mind, because bad team or not, they're going to give him upwards of 20 carries every single week. Daniel Jones, to the extent that he is capable of approaching a vaguely viable completion rate, he can only do in a low exposure offense. And that's one thing in particular. I don't know if Steichen knows that. Steichen might have other silly ideas, but when Daniel Jones tricked the Giants into giving him that $160 million contract, it was specifically following a season where he only would, like, Brian Dable would only call pass plays when they had to. They tried to limit the exposure of the passing game as much as possible. And even then, Daniel Jones could only throw 15 touchdowns. And people are like, hey, but that's 3 times as many as 5 interceptions. Like, yeah, well, 15 touchdowns is still less than 1 per game, you idiots. That's awful. Come on. Ridiculous. Who could have known it wouldn't work? Anyway, like in Steichen's mind, this might be something where if only because he's like, well, Anthony Richardson's a 48 completion percentage guy. Daniel Jones is a 66. Daniel Jones completes 66% of his passes when he's throwing the ball infrequently, and even then on very easy short routes. So on the one hand, Daniel Jones would definitely be good for a guy like Josh Downs and maybe Pittman too, because there's a chance Daniel Jones could complete like 65% of his passes. Even as a Richardson kind of apologist, I don't really think there's a scenario where Richardson completes 65% of his passes. And as much as Jones can't be exposed as a passer to much volume as a passer, certainly that's true about Richardson also. So for the pass catchers, it's kind of hard for me to as easily assume the usage will be there, especially for a guy like Alec Pierce. Like, I'm not really drafting Alec Pierce this year. I was drafting him in best ball last year in the last round, but Richardson is good for Pierce. Jones is bad for Pierce. Richardson likes to chuck it where Pierce gets all of his viable targets, which are just like all 30 yards downfield. Jones can't do that. Jones could, if Alec Pierce gets, if the corner falls at the start of the play, Jones could miss Pierce, 15 yards uncovered. He might miss that. Certainly he could miss 30 or 40 yards. So I'm not expecting Pierce to get a particularly viable sample of targets this year. But Jones would be really good for Downs, and I think Downs is an awesome player. I think he's going to have multiple 100 catch seasons in the NFL. So even though I think the Colts will be trash, if they're in a lot of garbage time situations, if they're hurrying up to catch up at the end of the half, every half, then guy like Downs, he could catch 3 or 4 passes on one drive. So I think he will be okay. And Pittman's too good of a player to really cross off, in my opinion. But none of these guys are going to be as good as they could have been if they were on a real team. So that's frustrating. I think that especially about Taylor, because I think Taylor absolutely could be a 2,000-yard runner on a team that can get first downs. I just don't think this is one of those teams.
Right, because there's not only just the two different types of quarterbacks that offer different types of bad. There's also like just a bad offensive line here. I think at least relative to like where it was, a couple of years ago, like end of Andrew Luck's career, and when even old Philip Rivers was there. This is a much worse offensive line.
John, I have to do some propaganda for Tanner Bortolini, the 3-cone Wisconsin center. Like what he's a Wisconsin center and he has the 3-cone record. He must be good. But
That's
yeah,
true.
It's not an impressive offensive line, and I'm hopeful Braden Smith bounces back when he's active. But even before he had the OCD thing or whatever, he was getting hurt quite a bit. So it might be passable if everybody stays healthy, but there's not much reason to think they will.
It needs to be a plus, is kind of what I'm saying. Given like the sheer kind of otherwise lack of quarterback talent.
Yeah.
If the defense,
it could just end up straight up bad though. Like if Smith can't get it together, if Smith misses time again, and they're Jalen Travis at right tackle or something like that, that's just, you're already down bad there.
Yeah, so that is a concern, and it's one that like playing in the AFC South is only going to get you so far as like being able to squint and look at the schedule and be like, oh, it's pretty easy, but it's going to be easy. Like it's the other team schedules are easy because you're on it as well. As far as your best ball exposure interests have gone, Taylor going late second at pick 20 overall, Josh Downs late 7th at 83 overall, Michael Pittman next round up at 92, and Tyler Warren at pick 118. So that's kind of like the main cluster. You get way much later, but before you get to your Alec Pierce, Anthony Richardson, DJ Giddens, Daniel Jones types. So of that top 4, how much are you looking at these guys?
It's definitely Taylor that I get the most of. Most of the best ball drafting I've done has been on underdog to this point. So as high as I am on Downs, I don't have that much of him on underdog because the half-point PPR does sting a guy like Downs. But on DraftKings, for instance, or on NFFC, where the full-point PPR is in play, I would really like to get Downs exposure this year because I think he could catch 100 passes this year. He might only score 3 or 4 touchdowns, but I think, that's a kind of limitation on a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba this year too. So I see a guy like Downs as a way to get a cheap triple digit reception count. In Taylor's case, I have a decent amount of exposure, but I've definitely, unlike literally every other career year of Taylor's, I've had to make myself not pick him a couple times just to
the shock collar.
Yeah, doesn't really work. I need to, like, a couple times I probably tried to pick him, but like missed or something. But it's good to keep the exposure of a guy like him a little bit limited in an offense that's supposed to be as bad as this. But Jamie's question here about Taylor versus Josh Jacobs. I do prefer Taylor still. There's a case for Jacobs. Jacobs could certainly gain ground in the receiving category, especially. And the touchdown count, I guess. Like maybe you would project Taylor to have fewer rushing touchdowns than Jacobs. So, yeah, I guess between a lower projected rushing touchdown count and a lower receiving projection, there is reason to think Taylor might get caught by Jacobs. It's just, especially in best ball. Well, I guess it doesn't matter in best. You're taking Taylor either way. That is whatever, redraft or best ball. But Taylor can be the 250-yard runner in a game. Jacobs can't be that guy, in my opinion. Like Jacobs, his crazy yardage output ceiling is something like 175 in a game. But Taylor's the guy who can, like I saw Uncle Ted's incorrect takes on Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, wrong.
Taylor ran for 1,800 yards already, dude, on the Colts. The 94 Cowboys, he's going for like 2,600. So yeah, I think Taylor's going to have a Saquon Barkley bounce back where everyone's like, "Oh, I didn't know he could do that," and then everyone will eventually pretend they knew it all along and delete all their past comments. But we're at least a year away.
Yeah, I fear that we are at least a year away. It's funny. I just pulled up my exposure on Underdog. I have the same amount of shares of both Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor.
I'm rotating basically between Taylor and Jacobs, I think, and I'm not taking Irving in that range usually, but I see the case for it. And if you got to take a running back in the second round, don't make it Taylor every single time. But I do think he's the one whose upside most justifies that level of expense.
All right, and then let's grab, it's the official take on Tyler Warren.
Oh yeah. Sorry,
rookie tight ends have been, like the narrative for the longest time was like, they need at least a year of seasoning before you can really count on them for fantasy. But obviously Sam Laporta and Brock Bowers have, torn that narrative to shreds. We saw two, first round tight ends this year, I think, because there is, confidence not only in a vacuum of the talents of Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren, but also that these guys are players that can be impact guys right away. So that the market has Tyler Warren going in probably like the 10th-ish round or so. Your thoughts on him? I know that's sort of an area where a ton of tight ends tend to go. I'll list off some of the other guys that go in that range from that position. So, I mean, you're looking at David Njoku, Tucker Kraft, who seems to be kind of climbing up some of the ADP boards. Colston Loveland goes a little bit later as well. Those are the main ones. Evan Ingram, too, out of Denver at pick 106, so just a bit ahead of one Tyler Warren. So that gives you the kind of general tier that we're looking at here for tight ends. If you are shopping there, how much Warren are you getting?
I don't have any exposure to Warren, but that's not because I mean to dismissively fade him. I definitely have some anxiety about that because as much as I don't really know how it would happen when I don't think the Colts are going to score touchdowns in general, Tyler Warren could get short yardage touchdowns. Like he could get, including at the expense of Jonathan Taylor. They want to justify that. At least Ballard definitely wants to justify that pick. But Steichen might also be hopped up on the idea that we would have been so much better last year if we just had a better tight end. Yeah, that's the problem. We just need Daniel Jones and a better tight end, and it'll all be great. And if that is what he suspects, he'll find out shortly that it's wrong. But I don't know if that ever means they go away from Warren exactly. They're going to scheme up some things for him. I guess the ideal case for Warren would almost be one where some of the functions that would traditionally go to a passing down back sort of just go to him, and I guess what I mean by that is hopefully they get him a bunch of screens so he can kind of run after the catch. I'm not convinced Warren is fast enough to really separate as a route runner, especially not downfield in the NFL, but he's tough to tackle. And if you can kind of get him moving a little bit, get him a blocker to catch the defense off guard a little bit, he could definitely run over people, break tackles at the second level, create some big plays that way. So if he gets some short yardage touchdowns and if he just kind of gets 3 or 4 design touches in the passing game per week, you could do worse than that in fantasy. And if Warren turns out to, if he has one of his better range outcomes as a prospect, like if Warren just proves conclusively like he's the real deal, then you could imagine him being one of the better tight end values there. But generally, I prefer David Njoku there. And I more than that, I would rather be picking Evan Ingram than any of those guys. Like I need Ingram to be like 3 rounds earlier than them before I am even thinking about the alternatives there. Like I see that as a tier drop off, and I like to be right before those drop offs rather than the person buying right after.
Yeah, I like the look for Ingram this year from that grouping. I just went ahead and grabbed I guess it'd be like 2 shares of Tyler Warren in cheaper contests lately. But yeah,
There's
I'm not
definitely
like
upside
overly
there.
confident.
I just
Yeah.
think it's like who knows what that team can't possibly have a viable plan for the year. Like whatever they're thinking is going to happen won't, and they're going to scramble at some point. It's just when you can run and catch, and maybe even do like wildcat quarterback stuff. Like if Sykin gets fired in week 6 and the Colts equivalent of Tony Sperano, rest in peace, takes over, like maybe we'll just get Tyler Warren wildcat quarterback instead of Riley Leonard when they go into tanking mode.
Well, that's all well and good, but I have more Alec Pierce than I care to admit on this podcast. So I need some Anthony Richardson just bombs to Pierce at least once in a while
Well, okay, Pierce should be fine. I think Richardson. If Richardson's
for
the
the
quarterback,
cost.
it's like if Richardson's a quarterback, then Pierce is like a steal. With Jones, he merely will be like an acceptable pick.
Yeah, like I think I'm taking him knowing that there's going to be a lot of
He's a good
zeros.
player. Pierce is not like some bum or somebody who just got lucky last year. Like he's good in my opinion.
Pierce, yeah, no, he had 7 touchdowns last year, and like he's athletic.
Better than Adonai Mitchell.
He,
Oof.
yeah, ugh, yikes. He reminds me. I'm gonna throw a name back at you from. I think this is probably like more than sometime in the 20 teens out of Texas Tech. Do you remember Dylan Cantrell?
I I remember the name, but I don't remember him playing in the NFL.
No, I don't either, but I do remember him being like a 6'3", 200-pound white guy with crazy athleticism. So like,
Oh,
he walked so Pierce could run, is what I'm saying.
actually, I'm gonna remember a guy. I'm gonna do remembering a guy trumping, showing up you. Uh, Also ethnically matched. Bill Schroeder or Schrader, I guess they say. I
Oh,
guess Bill Schrader is the receiver and Bill Schroeder is the Brewers announcer guy. But
yeah.
both Wisconsin legends, and their names are spelled the same.
I saw Bill Schroeder in the concourse at what I still refer to as Miller Park a few years ago. Nice guy, just a man of the people, going about his business
The
before
Brewers
the
the
game.
Brewers commentator tandem is ace. They're awesome.
Him, Brian Anderson, that's money. But even though they are like the best team in baseball, the fact that we are talking about the Brewers now, I think that does
Best
signal
team of
that
all time in any sport, John.
I'm
Sorry
loving
about
it.
your
I'm
Ravens or
I'm
whatever.
like kind of happily bandwagoning this Brewers team at this point. But
You
again,
have
sorry folks. We listen to James Anderson and Jeff and Clay
Clay,
and everybody.
Eric.
Halterman. I'm missing guys. Zola, Fred Zinke, a
Not
cavalcade of
anymore. Got
guests.
them all.
All those baseball guys. They do awesome work, and they're going to keep that ship rolling throughout the rest of the season. So do listen to them. But that's going to do it for us on this edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Again, check out if you haven't signed up at RotoWire just yet. Now's the time. Like your drafts are about to get started. You don't want to be lacking access to our tools and expert analysis and info, all that good stuff. Use that code YouTube15 to get 15% off any subscription here at RotoWire. Also, a big shout out to our friends over at Circa and over at Fantrax. From Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening.